On this week's Gridiron Report, we have March Madness officially getting underway. The Red Wings get a much needed win, and the Lions may or may not be asleep at the wheel. So let's get into it.
In the heart of the city where the lights grow dim, grit and grind every inch, every rim. From the underdogs rising to the legends that win. It's the Gridiron Report, let the games begin. Every highlight's a journey, roads paved with fire, sweat, tears, and hustle that never expire. From the rookies on the rise to the old hands retire, Gridiron is the place for fans to conspire. Hustle on blast, beats thundering loud. Champions are born from the roar of the crowd. The Gridiron Report, where the stories are proud. Tune in, bring the heat.
Welcome to the Gridiron Report, your Lions First, all Detroit sports podcast. Today is Wednesday, March 19th. And while this is easily the best time of year with March Madness starting, we are a Lions First podcast. So we're going to get going with some Lions news. I'm a little bit worried based on now that the free agency has kind of come and really got underway. We talked last week about it being pretty underwhelming, but I'm continuously getting closer and closer to the edge here. I need to be talked down a little bit just based on their lack of moves. We talked about how they kind of were going through and having all these smaller signings. Just today it came out that they re-signed guys like Pat O'Connor, guys that really are great depth pieces. But we talked last week about how we needed a little bit more, and we still haven't gotten that little bit more of substance. So, Kyle, I need you a little bit, if you can, talk me off the edge here. I'm getting a little bit worried going into next year. Not that we should, have any doubt of Brad Holmes. I'm getting a little bit worried here.
Buddy, I wish that I could talk you off the ledge right now. I wish I could tell you, you know what, we have the guys, we have the pieces, but I honestly can't. I mean, you look at sticking with a guy like Marcus Davenport after he's played 5 games in the previous 2 seasons combined, and it's a head scratcher to me. And they have made some good moves. We talked about it last week. We love the DJ Reed pickup at cornerback, but I'm extremely underwhelmed. And yeah, you have to trust Brad Holmes. You have to trust Dan Campbell. And look, I get it. I get what they're doing. Brad and Dan, they know how many dogs that they have in this locker room. And to their credit, it's a really good locker room, right? They feel like they have enough to win a Super Bowl. And maybe they do, but we saw it last year. You pick up some injuries, and then now you go from maybe the biggest Super Bowl contender to, well, you just got blown out in the divisional round, and they really can't afford that. And to bring back a guy like Davenport, who is extremely injury-ridden, it's head-scratching. So I wish that I could say, like, hey, come off this ledge, Ty. We're going to be fine. I don't exactly see it, but, maybe there's still a path forward, and maybe that guy is still Trey Hendrickson to come alongside Aiden Hutchinson. I'm just looking at the Bengals right now. This was just 2 days ago at the time of recording. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins both signed mega deals with the Bengals. Chase is now the highest paid non-quarterback of all time. T. Higgins is the highest paid wide receiver 2 of all time. So I look at this, and of course, I'm not an NFL capologist. I don't understand the cap. I don't get how
Nobody does.
Yeah, no one understands the cap. If you think you understand it, you fucking don't, buddy. But there's just absolutely no way that they can pay all of these guys these high value contracts and still pay Trey Hendrickson. So I think there is still a way that the Lions can make that trade and really solidify this defensive line and make it the best defensive line in the NFL. Again, salivating just thinking of it. But as of right now, I can't talk you off the ledge, and I wish that I could. But I'm just as underwhelmed as you are, man.
I'm just worried. I mean, you look at the other teams, and we went into it more in depth last week, so you can go back to last week's episode. We had a listener voice talk about some draft stuff, and we mentioned like the rest of the NFC North all got better in the trenches, and we did a decent job backfilling some of these depth guys, which we proved this year we need. Like that is going to come into play as we start getting injuries throughout the season. Like I said, we re-signed Pat O'Connor, a few of those guys. We had the signing of Roy Lopez, who's coming, I think, from the Cardinals. Some dogs there. But you need some more guys. You need another star in there. And so I feel like I wish we could have the DJ Reed signing and be 100% love that deal. I wish we had one more. Then we can just say, like, let's just use the draft to start filling some holes. Now we're starting to say, like, we need to kind of hit a home run on the draft and get a guy that can really contribute immediately, because that window is already starting to close. And so I was a little bit worried. Trey Hendrickson, like you said, still definitely available. If you think you know how the salary cap works, let us call us on the voicemail and let us know, because there's no chance anyone knows. It is always going up.
Please.
It doesn't really make sense. So we know somehow the Bengals might be able to pay Trey Hendrickson on top of T Higgins and Jamar Chase, but also that same sentiment. Like if you're worried about if you trade for Trey Hendrickson, you'll have to give him like a 3-year deal or something, and then that takes away money from other guys or something. The same kind of thing works for us. That the money doesn't matter. It seems to be going up every single year. We can find the money to pay him, and so the only question is like, how much would it take to get something like that done? Like I'm all for it, because like I said, that can kind of just let us coast into the draft and use the draft to fill some smaller holes and some depth pieces. We originally talked like, would you give up that like 60th pick that's in the second round? And that was kind of on the air. Now we've kind of put ourselves in a situation where like I'm starting to talk myself into giving up the 28th pick for him. There's reports today. There's reports today that the Colts are out there talking about trying to quietly get a deal done. You had Lou, the former DC for the Cincinnati Bengals, was just fired last year. He's now with the Indianapolis Colts. They're trying to get a deal quietly done to add him to that defensive line. I'm that desperate, dude. I'm that close to the edge. If this is the edge, this is me on the edge of it. Like I am ready to jump off and just throw that 28th pick, because like maybe that turns into somebody when you're that deep or that far into the draft. I don't know. So it sounds like we're both kind of on the same plane here about we're getting a little bit worried. There still is some time. Really, what kind of kick-started this worry for me was Azeez Ojulari signing with the Eagles. He was somebody that we talked about last week. We talked about him at the trade deadline coming from the Giants. And it's not, he wouldn't have been a perfect fit for this defensive line. A little bit undersized. I think it's more of like a 3-4 rather than a 4-3. So it wouldn't have been perfect, but the Eagles signed him. So like, not only is that another option that the Lions can't go out and get, it's adding to a team that already obviously just won the Super Bowl, is already dominant, is in the NFC. Like, not only are the teams around us getting harder and better, this schedule is insanely hard this upcoming year. So I'm officially worried. I don't know if anyone out there in listener land is worried. We've said you've got to give Brad Holmes the benefit of the doubt. He's done nothing but prove us wrong when we have our dumbass takes about not taking Jahmyr Gibbs and stuff like that. He's earned that right. But damn it, I'm worried. If he's just starting to do this because he's going with like we have our guys, like we want our guys, and if they want to be the smartest guys in the room, I'm worried.
Let's pump the brakes real quick on that first round pick. Like we can't be hitting the panic button right now.
I'm hitting
as we speak. March 19th. Yeah, no, don't hit the panic button. That's first round pick, in my opinion, would be way too much. I mean, this is a 29-year-old edge rusher, right? And we know what happens to edge rushers once they turn 30, 31. I mean, they quite literally fall off a cliff. So, we can't be, sending the farm for a first round pick. But I that second round pick that's probably what I would send to get it done. But that's just my opinion.
Yeah, I don't know if that second round pick is going to get it done just from the Bengals side. But now, like I said, the fact that the Colts are involved. But,
which makes no sense to me, by the way. I mean, the Colts, like they're not like they're a one edge rusher away from being anywhere near relevant. I mean, those guys fucking suck. But here I said that last week about the Washington Wizards, and then they go out and they beat the Pistons. So I mean, what the fuck do I know?
Yeah, we got punked in that game. Yeah, we are a Lions First podcast, so I just need to be talked off the edge a little bit. If anything, I think I've just inched closer. So if you're listening to this a few days from now, please have the Lions have done something by then, or else who knows where we're going to be going with this. But like we said, this is truly the best time of the year because March Madness has officially begun. We had the conference tournament last week. The Spartans came up just short against Wisconsin in a game just after beating Oregon and playing really well. They kind of came up short there. And then Michigan ended up winning the conference tournament, beating Wisconsin a day later. And in what turned out to be a pretty ugly game, kind of resembled that Michigan-Nebraska game a few weeks ago. That was just an absolute barn burner. And then we had a Selection Sunday then right after, to basically give us the matchups for Michigan and Michigan State. But let's go back to the Big Ten tournament. So like I said, Michigan State beats Oregon and then loses to Wisconsin. The Oregon game, like I said, I think they looked really good. Last time we played Oregon really caught fire in the first half from three. They were just nailing them all over. And then we kind of did what we did all season and really hunkered down in the second half, and strapped the defense in and just really took it to them. It really didn't feel like that was the same case in this game against Oregon. We kind of took care of business entirely, throughout the whole time. But then the Wisconsin game was a little bit different. We just let John Tanji just go absolutely all for 32 against us. Other than letting him go off, I feel like we played pretty well outside of Xavier Booker and Frankie Fiddler. And I hate zeroing out two different guys individually like that. But, I mean, they were damn near unplayable. And I think Tom knew that, too. I think their minutes throughout the whole game was like Frankie was at like 6 minutes and Xavier was at like 4. I mean, they would come in and just immediately create a foul or turn the ball over. So Tom kind of saw that. But I don't know. Like, we still played pretty well. Would end up being a 77-74 loss against Wisconsin.
Yeah, I mean, from what I saw, and granted, I was at the bars St. Patrick's Day in Dallas, but I did watch that entire game, and I thought they played well. I didn't, after the game was over, I wasn't scratching my head being like, how the hell did we lose this game? I mean, I know exactly how they lost that game, and his name was John Tanji, dropping 32 points. I mean, he was unbelievable, and then huge credit to Wisconsin. The last two plays of the game, they come away with two insanely good blocks, like really great defensive plays where, like, to the naked eye, I'm like watching the game like, oh my God, that's a foul. And look at the replay and it's all clean. Ball both times, very clean. So I mean, they played tremendously well, and I think it's honestly, it's not a bad thing. I think it's a good reset, a point for Michigan State where, you do get that extra day of rest. Of course, would have loved to be playing for a Big Ten championship, tournament championship, I should say. But it's really not the end of the world, and it's a good gut punch to know that, if a team gives you their very best, and they played extremely well. We saw Wisconsin play so much better on Saturday than they did on Sunday. That you're going to get beat, and I think that's something that you need to see, especially mid-March going into the NCAA tournament. So yeah, not super butthurt on that one. I do agree, Booker and Frankie Fiddler. I do think that Frankie Fiddler, he has a spot in this team as a rotational player. He's very up and down, but I think that if he gets hot, he can make shots in March that really matter, and I really wish that I could say the same about Xavier Booker. Unfortunately, I can't. I think, we talked about the team needing a reset button. I think he absolutely needs a reset button in the offseason. I'm not saying that he should leave. I really want Booker to stay and work in the offseason, work with his coaching staff that knows how to coach up players and really get better, because, he does have a skill set. It just seems like he's absolutely lost out there, and he needs an offseason of reset. So I am not saying that I'm giving up on the kid. I'm absolutely not. But as far as this tournament goes, I mean, we have seen his numbers diminish over the year as far as minutes are concerned. And yeah, I just think that, in a team that's as deep as Michigan State, they have 7, 8, 9 guys who can get you a bucket. I just think that there's not a lot of room for him right now, but that's not to say that I'm giving up on him completely.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you, and we can do a breakdown, of how many minutes and minute allowing when we get to the off season for this team. But I agree with you in that, like, yeah, we played really well. You look at the numbers across the board for the Oregon game, we shot 46% from three, which is shocking. So, like, even outside the scores, I think these numbers mean more moving forward into March. 46% from three against Oregon. Against Wisconsin, we shot almost 37% from three. And those are two things that, like, Michigan State struggled all season for. And so to see those numbers start to tick up, we've always said, like, they play such great defense. They rebound the ball so well. If they could just get their 3-point numbers up a little bit, we might have something here. So, like, regardless of the outcome, I think seeing that those two numbers just in general makes me feel a little bit better. I'm real pretty balanced. Those two games, you had Jace Richardson lead the way against Wisconsin with 21. Jeremy Fears second with 14. So played, like you said, played really well. Just didn't kind of go our way. Credit to Wisconsin. They kind of came down and made the plays at the end that they needed to. And on the other side, you had Michigan, who, again, they played really as well as good of a game we played against, Oregon and Wisconsin, even if we didn't get that win. Michigan played a fantastic game against Maryland. And like you mentioned, It was, St. Patrick's Day, everyone was out in the bars. And so I wasn't watching this game 100%, but they end up beating Maryland 81-80 on just an absolute, honestly, just a fantastic play by Trey Donaldson, take it all the way, literally coast to coast. Just no one got in his way with seconds winding down and getting the layup as the go-ahead basket to win the game. Their starting lineup played fantastic. You had Vlad with 25, Danny Wolf with 21, Trey Donaldson with 12, and then that play, obviously, Amari Burnett with 10, Roddy Gale with 9 off the bench. So they played really, really well in that game. They shot almost 39% from three. And Maryland's a good starting five. We joked, with our friends at Maryland, they went like weeks without having a bench point, not even like a good bench run, a bench point. But their starting five is really, really good. And so they can kind of offset that. In this game, Maryland's bench had 2 points, and the rest of the team had 78. So, you look at Derek Queen, who is fantastic, freshman of the year in the Big Ten, had 31. Sheldon Miguel had 16. Julian Reese with 13. So, both teams played really well. Credit to Michigan for getting it done after sliding for quite a few weeks. They got it done against a really impressive Maryland team. Now, moving into Sunday, obviously, Michigan got it done again, winning the Big Ten tournament 59-53 against Wisconsin. That game was much uglier. Like I said in the beginning, kind of was more reminiscent of the Michigan-Nebraska game a few weeks ago. That was just so ugly. Like, we made the joke back then in that episode, like someone turned on college basketball for the first time to that game, and they are never going to turn college basketball on again. It was that bad. You look at this game, Wisconsin shot 17% from three. Michigan shot 27% from three, 32% from the field. Wisconsin, 22% from the field. This game was all around ugly. And I guess you could say maybe it was like a defensive battle. I think it really was just offensive. Both offenses that were playing really well up until then just kind of ran out of steam. Going 4 games in a row, or 3 games in a day, in 3 days, that's difficult to do. So credit to Michigan for winning, really well against Maryland, and then winning real ugly against the Badgers.
Yeah, and I'm not looking too much into how ugly that game was. Everyone knows you play 4 games in 4 days, and both those teams did. The legs just went out. They got tired. Of course, it's gonna be an ugly game, a letdown game for Wisconsin after playing extremely well against Michigan State. So that's gonna happen. Nowhere the rest of the season, before or after the Big Ten tournament, are you gonna play 4 games in 4 days? Like even the NCAA tournament, right. It's only 2 games in a weekend. So it's obviously tough on those kids. But yeah, all credit to Michigan. And I guess I'm probably gonna be bitching and moaning a bit on Michigan's behalf. I've probably never done this in my entire life, but it's so clear to me that the NCAA selection committee, they don't give a shit about what happens in these conference tournament games. And they so clearly have made the entire bracket on the Thursday or the Friday before. They're phoning it in. Maybe they're making a few edits, but it really doesn't seem like that. You look at the University of Michigan, you beat Purdue, then Maryland, then Wisconsin in back-to-back-to-back games. These are 3 very solid quad 1 wins that you just picked up. And you go from being probably a 5 seed before the conference tournaments because you had lost some games and you honestly kind of played like shit down the stretch. But then you pick up these 3 awesome quad 1 wins against 3 teams that are all in the tournament, and you don't get rewarded at all. In fact, that you stay the 5 seed. And not only that, you play a pretty hot UC San Diego team on 10 p.m. on Thursday in Denver. So you just played 4 games in 4 days, selection Sunday, and now you got to fly to Denver. So and you're not even rewarded with maybe that Friday time slot late on Friday. You got to play in that Thursday time slot in Denver, a couple time zones away. So I really just don't see how they can get screwed anymore. And yeah, I think it's on the selection committee, and I think you need to see a little reform in and we've seen this in years past too, right? Michigan State's made deep runs in the Big Ten tournament. They have not been rewarded at all. So this is not new, but I think something's got to give. Something's got to change. It's kind of messed up.
Yeah, I as that game was coming to an end, the Michigan-Wisconsin game, I was talking with my brother-in-law, and he was like, what do you think they moved to now? And originally I was because of the slide, they were kind of sitting at like a 4 probably, 4 or 5 maybe. And I made the statement to him. I was like, because of this little run they were on, the way they were able to beat Maryland, a really good Maryland team and a good Wisconsin team, like I said, albeit ugly, but still winning. I told him, there's a real chance I think they could sneak up to the 3. And I thought maybe they could, we could go that way. And they ended up going the opposite way. So I was shocked. I think everyone really was shocked. There's a lot to talk about with the committee. We're not even going to get into the UNC stuff. How the chairman is UNC's
just real quick. Fuck UNC. That's bullshit.
Dude, they went 1-10 in quad 1 games, and the chairman of the selection committee is the AD for UNC. So if UNC got into the tournament, he got like a $1.5 million bonus, and he technically recused himself when they were discussing North Carolina's bid and whether they deserve to get in. But to see them get in over teams like Indiana, who obviously won at Breslin this year against us, or some other
West Virginia,
other very deserving teams, like you said, West Virginia. That's actually crazy. So then, you kind of compound the Michigan stuff here. I feel bad for them. Dusty May has only made an enemy in me since the whole debacle at the logo, but I do feel bad for them that they had to go about and do that. Like you said, they're going up against a real hot UC San Diego team. So let's go into the two different matchups here for Michigan State. You already mentioned, we'll just keep going with Michigan here. You already mentioned UC San Diego, 10 p.m. on Thursday in Denver. Before we go any further, you want to play Guess the Line real quick?
Yeah, let's do it. And full disclosure for this Michigan game, I did see the line. We had a buddy who texted it earlier, so I can't really guess it. But let's dive into it real quick. I mean, Michigan, the line's down to Michigan -2.5, which for a 5-12, that's about as frisky as it gets. I know there's actually a 12 seed. I think it's Colorado State that's favored in this tournament. So I mean, it could be worse if you're Michigan. But yeah, I mean 2.5 in the tournament, that might as well be a pick'em. So I think it's gonna be a dogfight, and I don't know UC San Diego too well, except for what I've heard the past couple of days. But it seems like they can hit some threes, and it might be a tough matchup for U of M.
Yeah, so 5-12 is always a fun matchup for five seed teams, because it's always a good game. There's always an upset chance there. You're right. They put up a lot of threes. They connect on 36% of them, so better than Michigan. Essentially better than Michigan State other than as of late. Tate Jones leads the nation in free throw attempts. They're really, really good at getting at the line, which is going to be real difficult for Michigan because they kind of feed off their two big guys, Danny Wolf and Vlad Golden there. So if U San Diego is able to get to the line, get Michigan in foul trouble, we've seen when Vlad gets in foul trouble early, he's immediately taken out of the game. They could be in some trouble there. The other thing that U San Diego does really well is that they both never turn the ball over, and they're one of the best teams in the country, if not the best, at turning the ball over. And Michigan's very bad at handling the ball. So it really truly is a matchup that Michigan, everything about this, just stings to high heaven for Michigan if they play as they normally have. Now, there's been a few games this season that they've come out and they've handled the ball. They've, pretty much like we saw against Maryland, that they look really good. They run the offense as they should through the two big guys. They stay out of foul trouble. They handle the ball. They don't turn it over. And I think they should cover that spread if they can do that. But that's a big if. Keeping UC, I think they're the Titans, I want to say. The Titans, keeping them off the three-point line.
Sounds right.
Off the free throw line. It's going to be really interesting. It'll be difficult for them. Everything about it's going to be real difficult. So, again, that's on Thursday at 10 p.m. I know people just like seeing on Twitter and all the different media heads and stuff like that, they are calling this one as one of the potential upsets. So hopefully for our Michigan listeners and fans out there, they are able to handle the ball. If they just slow it down and play their big man offense, the pick and roll between the two 7-footers, they should be okay. But we'll have to wait and see. Moving over to Michigan State, we get the draw the time frame that at least Michigan fans probably wanted. We are be playing Bryant on Friday instead of Thursday at 10 p.m. in Cleveland. So obviously it's about 3.5 hours from us. Get rewarded for being the 2 seed there. You want to play guest line on this one?
Yeah, let's do it. I'm just thinking 2 seed versus 15. I mean, it's typically the line is 15 plus. Again, not being an expert on Brian by any stretch of the imagination, I think let's go Michigan State minus 16.5. And honestly, I feel like Michigan State is not a team that covers high spreads. And I would probably take Bryant in the points, but I do think that the boys get it done.
Yeah, so right now, it looks like it opened and stayed consistent. It's still at Michigan State minus 18.5. So a little bit more than what you're thinking. So just a little bit about, I'm not going to sit here and lie and act like I've watched Bryant basketball or watched UC San Diego basketball, but just based on all my research and my time not working and procrastinating. A little bit about Bryant. They went 23-11 this year, won the American East to punch their ticket into the big dance. They're actually coached by Phil Martelli Jr., so our Michigan fans might ring a bell for them. Phil Martelli Sr., obviously a longtime assistant for the University of Michigan. Actually, when the Bryant Bulldogs won their conference, Tom reached out to Phil Jr. and said, congratulations, good luck in the tournament. And then, here we are playing them in the first round. So really interesting there. They have some good talent on their team. They're led by Earl Timberlake, who is a 6'6" transfer. He was like a top 30 recruit when he was coming out of high school. I want to say he played for University of Miami for a few years. Like he was at a high level college, transferred over to Bryant. This year, he's averaging 8.2 rebounds per game, 5.9 defensive rebounds per game. Let's see what numbers. Their other guy that they have kind of leading their way, at least offensively, is Rafael Pinson, averaging 18.5 points per game, shooting 42% from the field, 88.5% from the free throw line. The one thing about the Bulldogs, they really like to push the pace. They really thrive on second chance opportunities, which is really interesting because that's kind of Michigan State's game. Michigan State likes to get out and run. They like to they're not going to give you a chance to set their defense. They're going to get out and push and transition, and they also thrive on second chance opportunities. When our three ball wasn't falling, we were at least getting rebounds. Jackson Kohler was, averaging 7.6 rebounds per game. He's absolutely doing work on the boards. He's doing really well. So it'll be really interesting to see, which team can capitalize more, maybe on either the first chance opportunities and not let it go to that, or who is going to win the battle on the boards. They're also a really big team, so it's something to watch. They lead, or the third in the nation with 6.1 blocks per game and have great size. With so our three centers, Kohler, Cooper, and Zapala are going to really come in handy if we need to throw a few guys at them, start racking up the fouls a little bit just to use up our bodies. That should play in our favor. But it'll be interesting. This is the first time we're back in Cleveland since we started the 2000 national championship run. So it'll be really fun. I know a handful of people that are going out to Cleveland. Like I said, just like a 2.5-3.5 hour drive out there. So it'll be a really interesting game.
It's only a couple hour drive to Cleveland. They're going to show out. They're going to show out in bunches. We saw it in the Big Ten tournament in Indy, especially in that Oregon game where it seemed like there was probably about 95% Michigan State fans there. I think that, we are going to have, a decent home crowd advantage in Cleveland, and these fans they're hungry for a deep run in March Madness. We haven't seen one since, of course, the Final Four in 2019. And it seems like this team has the juice to do it. And, just looking at the South region overall, I do think that it's a very favorable draw for MSU. I mean, look at other regions like the West where, it's the region of death. And then you look back in the South and, you have, teams in MSU's path like Iowa State, the 3 seed, very good team, right? But they just lost one of their best players, Keyshawn Gilbert, to a groin injury. He, was just ruled out for the entire NCAA tournament. So you take away teams like that, and I really do like MSU's path to the Sweet 16 and really their odds of making the Elite Eight too. And then we don't want to be too forward thinking. Of course, it's one game at a time in the NCAA tournament, as we know all too well. But you look at Auburn. They have a really tough matchup in the second round of the tournament, potentially against Louisville, who, in my opinion, and in my opinion doesn't really matter, but the opinion of a lot of experts is that they are drastically underseeded. We could have seen Louisville, who's a very hot team, as, a 6 seed, a 7 seed, and they got, I think they're the 8, 9 seed, whatever they are. They, in the game, if they do win and they play Auburn in the second round, the game's being played in Kentucky. So
yeah,
really, really tough game for Auburn, who has kind of dropped a few games recently. I think they're still a very, very good team, a very deep team. And if MSU did, knock on wood, run into in the Elite Eight, I think it'd be tremendously hard for Michigan State to win that game. But I think winnable all the rest. And then you look at other teams, look at the 4 seed, the 5 seed in the South. I'm looking at, Texas A&M, University of Michigan. They're both on upset watch. I mean, we talked about U of M, and I do think that I'm going to pick U of M in my bracket just because everyone is going to be, on UC San Diego for the upset. I think I have to go contrarian there, but I think it's a tough matchup against Yale, and I have a ton of, obviously live in Texas, ton of friends, ton of A&M friends, and they're pretty much just as nervous. So yeah, I think overall very favorable South region, and now it's just up to Tom and the boys to get it done.
Yeah, we could. I mean, if the Big Ten basketball gods are looking down upon us, we could get a Michigan State rematch in the Elite Eight. I think, right? That's where we could meet back up.
It would be the Elite Eight, yeah, and that would be after Michigan would potentially take down Auburn.
Yeah, so
assuming no other upsets go on there. But I mean, How about that? I mean, that would just be one for the fucking ages.
Yeah, you can't script that. I mean, you laid out the whole region perfectly. I think it could be worse. At one point, Auburn was a team that I didn't want to come across, and now maybe they are if we had to come across them. So we will be on next week? Yeah, I think we'll have next week talking about hopefully still some teams in there, Michigan State wise in there. We can talk about some more matchups that we're coming across. Real quick though, embrace debate. Would you rather have your team playing the Thursday Saturday slot or the Friday Sunday slot?
It's a great question. It's tough because when that ball's tipped off on Thursday and games start playing, it's one of the best. Well, it's nothing like it. One of the best days, and you find yourself. I mean, you got to get work done, right? No matter what your whatever your profession is, but it makes it a little bit hard when you have all those games on, and you just want your team to tip off as soon as possible. But I do think that Saturday, obviously assuming that your team wins their first game, there's almost nothing better than having that Saturday. So I think that I actually am. And this is probably different than I thought. I probably flip-flopped on this, but I think I am going Thursday if I can have my time slot in the evening where I can, go out, have some beers with friends. Having a 12 p.m. tip-off on Thursday when, you very much are still in the workday, that's not fun. But, if I could have my pick of it, it'd be, Thursday tip-off at 7:30 local time, grab dinner, grab beers with your friends. It's the most beautiful time of the year. And then you win that game, and now you get to watch your team on a Saturday. And I think that there's nothing better than that. So I'm going Thursday, Saturday. But what are you thinking?
Yes, I'm going to go opposite. I'm a Friday closing out the week. We've already got one slate under our belts from Thursday. Closing out the week. Hopefully you got all your work done from the previous week and from the Friday done already. So you get to watch your team. And then I'm a fan for a Sunday afternoon, lazy Sunday. We don't have to go out and do anything crazy. Let's just pile on a couch and watch it on a Sunday. So I'm a Friday, Sunday kind of guy.
Respect.
But you can't really go wrong. So again, hopefully we have some updates on both these teams for next week's episode, talking about how they played, who hopefully they are still in and still have another matchup coming down the line, so we can keep moving on those guys. And we'll see how they end up doing. But let's keep it moving for the episode. Let's stay on the hardwood and just talk about the Pistons. So at the time of this, they just had one of the most relaxing, carefree wins against the Pelicans last night when we're recording this. The bench played absolutely incredible. They're playing really, really well. They are essentially, actually now at the time of this recording, they have officially locked a playoff spot. So we will have playoff basketball here in Detroit, which is something we haven't had in over a decade, I think, around there, something like that.
At least.
And so now that right now we've only locked in a play-in spot for the NBA started the play-in games a few years ago. So we've locked in a play-in spot. The magic number to get an actual playoff series is 8. We need 8 more wins in order to have locked in the playoff series. Now you look at the season starting to come to an end. Those 8 wins, we have played the Heat, Mavericks, Pelicans, Spurs, Cavs, Timberwolves, Thunder, Raptors, Grizzlies, Kings, Bucks. So going through those, it'll be close. It'll come right down to it. In those, I see at least half that should be wins, right? You might need to steal one. And that's obviously saying the other teams end up winning. And so we get no help from anyone else. We just have to win our 8 and get in there. But it'll be really close. All we wanted going into the season was meaningful basketball as at the end of the season where we're tracking other teams' scores, we're tracking our scores, is it going to happen, is it not going to happen? That's all we were asking for. And the fact that we've already locked down at least a playoff game, and we will be doing the tracking of other scores and records and stuff like that, and for a potential playoff series to try and get up to the 4 seed or the 6 seed even. I mean, it's fantastic. I love this team. I tweeted this out last night during the absolute ass whooping of the Pelicans. I truly think this. It might be recency bias and my dumb sports brain, but I truly think the Pistons are pushing the Lions as the most exciting team here in Detroit.
Yeah, I mean, they're the Showtime Pistons, man. Every time that Cade throws up a lob, Jalen Duren, I feel something, man, and that's probably fucked up to say. I should be feeling something from things other than just sports, but no, the Pistons they're phenomenal, man. I do think they're Showtime. We talked about it a ton in previous episodes, but just the turnaround that they've had is so phenomenal. And you mentioned it, yeah, they are now locked into at least a play-in game, and that's really if everything goes pretty horrendously the rest of the season, right? I mean, they are all but locks into at least this 6th seed, and really don't look now, but they're exactly one game back of both the Pacers and the Bucks, and at least at the time of this recording. So things might have changed now that we're already 10:07 Eastern on Tuesday night. But at the very least, I mean, they are within a stone's throw of some pretty good teams in the Pacers and the Bucks, who are both playing very good ball right now. And, they're potentially competing for that 5 or that 4 seed. So I just really love what I see. You mentioned the Pelicans game. Yeah, Cade dropped 24. Fontecchio with 23.
Finally.
Finally. He was finally the boobity bobbity. He was finally a flamethrower from 3. He's been struggling a bit this year, but I think overall what I've just been really impressed with is the Pistons bench. I mean, they're a deep team. They're a young team. They're extremely athletic, and they all can play defense. And I think, you run into a team like that in the NBA playoffs, and they'll give you a run for your money. They will. I mean, when you have a team who's a plus 10, a top 10 team, offensively, especially the last month or two, and then you look at their defense, and I think they're like a top 5, top 6 efficiency defensive team. Number one, excuse me, top 5. It couldn't be top 5, and it's not 5. They're number 1 right now in defensive efficiency. They're going to give teams a run for their money, especially in that first round, and you never know. So I just love how the boys are playing.
Yeah, I can't wait to get playoff basketball back to LCA. I know we've talked about this exact discussion weeks ago. I can't remember if we've had a playoff series at LCA. Because was built in 2019 or something. We hadn't made the playoffs. The Red Wings surely haven't made the playoffs. So this would be the first playoff environment at LCA. Yeah. I mean, and again, it's going to coincide perfectly with spring coming around the corner and opening day. It's going to be absolutely rocking. I'm so here for it, but I'm actually kind of beefing with Cade right now just because they did kick the shit out of the Pelicans so badly last night. I had a parlay that it was a 3-leg parlay, and he needed to score 30, and he put up 24, and then because we were beating them so badly, he sat most of the rest of the fourth quarter.
He didn't even play in the fourth, basically, yeah.
So it really, and my other 2 legs hit, and so I am beefing with him. Cade, if you want to just Venmo me the money, it wasn't very much, but hit me up after this, and we can figure that out. You just had to go. And actually, the last time I bet on him, or last time I bet on the Pistons or someone hitting that he got ejected for fighting. So I don't know what when I bet on guys over scoring, they either get ejected or they sit because we're kicking ass. I don't know. But either way, I'm loving what they're doing. I can't wait for this last 8 game, or I think that I listed off 16, 12, 14 games or something, and I count at least 6 of them that I think can be wins. So you steal 1 or 2, get some help elsewhere, and we should be good to go. But let's keep it moving. Nothing else to talk about the Pistons. Let's jump over to the Red Wings, where we actually have a listener voicemail.
Let's get into it.
Hey, boys. Brian from West Redford, long-time listener, second-time caller. Just tried to leave a voicemail. Might have ranted too long, so I'm going to keep this short and sweet. Wanted to talk some Red Wings. You guys crushed it on the pod today. Very underwhelmed, like you both are, at the trade deadline. Thought we could have made some better moves, especially with where we sit in regard to the wild card and potential playoff spot. And also, we have the toughest strength of schedule in the NHL going forward the remainder of the season. So really could have used, I think, a shot in the arm to kind of galvanize the troops here as we're on a skid. Specifically, Kyle mentioned defending. I think that would have helped, but also some secondary scoring, maybe some 2s and especially 3s second and third liners that could help us produce in those big moments when we need it. You look, Ottawa got Fabian Zetterlund. Boston got Casey Middlestat, and they switched him out for Charlie Coyle. So just guys that I think could have benefited us that we really didn't make a move. But I'm also kind of fence riding here. Firm believer in Yzerman. The young guys in the pipeline are great, but I just think 10 years out of playoffs, we really could have made a move there to help us make the push. Love you, boys. Keep crushing it. We'll keep listening.
Awesome, man. Hey, Brian from West Redford. Sounds like a lovely place. And yeah, second-time caller. You sound like a first-team Rambler, buddy. But we really appreciate your call. And I do agree, Brian. It seems like if you look at other teams in the league, at that trade deadline, a lot of teams got better. A lot of teams added pieces. And in my opinion, the Wings did not. I mean, everyone can see that. The Wings really didn't do anything. And yeah, I mean, I love Iserman. I grew up watching him. He was one of my favorite players. I do still believe in him, but at the same time, it's tough when you look at that, that 10-year playoff drought. It needs to end, and it seems like, like you said, Brian, we do have a lot of really young talent right now, but at the same time, I mean, like, are you so married to all future picks that you're not going to want to get someone at the deadline? It kind of seems like when you do stay put, and the same thing happens every single year where, you go through some ebbs and flows, you don't make the playoffs again. I mean, it seems like, it's the same thing. We talked about it in years past, but if you're not getting better, you're getting fucking worse. And I think a lot of the fan base is pretty fed up with that. So, I mean, we'll see what happens the rest of the season. But, right now they're kind of on a crash course for not making the playoffs once again. And yeah, Brian, you mentioned, a really tough strength of schedule. Well, that ain't helping them at all. And oh, by the way, tonight they got their ass kicked by the Washington Capitals. Again, skated hard. I wasn't able to watch the game, but just, following along, it was a 1-1 game for the majority of the game. They gave up 3 goals late, ended up losing 4-1. But, it's not a game where I expected them to win. The Washington, they're one of the best teams in the Eastern Conference, but, at the same time, you can't really afford to drop that many more games. I mean, this is the home stretch. So, yeah, the game before, the Wings picked up a really huge 3-1 win versus Vegas. But, yeah, their playoff hopes are still really poor. A quick shout out to Peter Mrazek, who did have a shutout in that Vegas game. And he was actually playing pretty well since he's, redonned the winged wheel, although I think he was in net tonight. So picked up the loss tonight. But it's not all bad. I do love what I see from the young players. You mentioned the young players as well, Brian. Guys like Marco Kasper, who are really coming into their own. Last 30 games, he actually leads all rookies with 11 goals, and these are not power play goals. These are full strength goals, 11 goals, and then 19 points as well. And his 20 points overall are 4th among rookies. So it seems like he's really coming into his own. I mean, last 30 games, he's been tremendous. So, you keep this going, you keep that momentum going into next year. They have a ton of young guys who are, continuing to get better. But, I mean, it seems like Iserman is very much like, yep, we're fine with the young guys. We're fine with probably not making the playoffs again. And me as a fan, and I think a lot of the fan bases, they're kind of fed up with that shit. So, I mean, I think we need some changes.
I was speaking of change, I was ready. I mean, we went on last week's episode talking about I wanted something. I wanted them to do something. I had mentioned, I'm not the biggest hockey guy, but I know enough to be dangerous. I wanted them to do something. They end up doing, I would say I shouldn't say nothing because they end up getting Peter. And I was actually ready when we started recording this, or right before we started, it was 1-1 game, and I was ready to come on here and be like, maybe I was wrong. Maybe Stevie does know kind of what he's doing, bringing Peter back in, Peter Mrazek, and he wasn't having a great season, but he had a great year last year, and so like maybe he actually did know what he was doing. He had a great few outings, and they're rolling with him. And then, as we started recording, obviously, like you mentioned, we ended up losing 4-1. So it's back to the same thing. I think that's what almost scares me the most about the Lions when what they're doing, what we opened the show with like going with our guys and, not making moves when everyone wants them to. It's because it's the same thing we always are seeing here in Detroit. We saw for so many years with the Tigers, they were always just saying like, well, yeah, but look at our farm system. Look how good our farm system is. These are our guys. We want to draft and develop and then win with our guys. Now, obviously that did change this year when we tried to go out to Bregman. It didn't work, neither here nor there. Stevie Y is a master at doing that. Look at our farm system. Look how good we are. We're going to draft, develop, and we're going to win with our guys. So that's why I'm worried that the Lions were starting to do that same thing. Like, we don't need to go out and get better from any of these superstars. We're going to draft and do it our way, and that's a dangerous recipe. And that's how you quickly see your windows close. And so, I mean, yeah, I'm the same way as Brian. I was upset last week. I'm still upset this week. There was a chance that if we won, I think if the Habs had lost in regulation, and then one other team had lost in regulation, we would have been back in the driver's seat for that final wild card spot. I don't even know what happened around the league, but it's all null and void because we obviously got our asses kicked. So yeah, it's frustrating. It's going to be another year. It'll be interesting to see if there actually is any pressure, this offseason, if we do end up falling short of the playoffs. It probably would have happened last year, but because of that magic we had at the end of the year, it kind of bought Stevie a little more time and people were rejuvenized. Now that we're probably not going to have that same sort of fire to end the season, it'll be interesting to see if we are holding his feet to the flame a little bit, to see if there are people that are going to start getting a little bit antsy. But yeah, thanks for the call, Brian. Appreciate it. Appreciate the Red Wings talk. It's something that we need to keep doing as we come down the pipeline here and start getting towards the end of the season to see if they can make that playoff push.
Yeah. And should we talk about some happy hockey for a second? Because yeah, the Wings are depressing me just a little bit right now. We can't. I just can't have that. So, in college hockey news, Michigan State picks up a huge win against Notre Dame in East Lansing, 1-0 victory in a best-of-1 game in the Big Ten tournament semifinals. Isaac Howard, Michigan State's star player, and the 31st draft pick in the NHL draft last season, with the game-winning snipe. So yeah, it was awesome to see. And then of course, Detroit Red Wings draft pick Trey Augustine in net for Michigan State with an absolute gem and a shutout as well. So yeah, a really, really great win. And now Michigan State actually looks to defend their Big Ten tournament title. Of course, they already defended their Big Ten regular season title. They're looking for the tourney title as well from a year ago. They're going to take on Ohio State. Puck drops at 7:30 Eastern on Big Ten Network. So really excited for that. Michigan State actually is back to being the number one overall team in the entire country. So they've been kind of flip-flopping between 1 and 2, dropped a few games, went to 2. Now they are back to the number one team in the country with some really good momentum going into the NCAA tournament and hopefully the Frozen Four. But the boys are skating well. The boys have picked up a ton of Big Ten accolades. Isaac Howard is your Big Ten Player of the Year. Trey Augustine, your Big Ten Goalie of the Year, to the surprise of no one. But these are two just tremendous players and really, in my opinion, future not only future prospects in the NHL, but future stars. So really, really pumped to see what's going on with MSU hockey. And now, boys, it's time to bring it home because I think Michigan State, we really need another championship. Haven't had one in hockey since 2007, the Justin Ablucator years, Duncan Keith. So yeah, I think they are past due. They have the talent, even picking up a few injuries, looking at Red Savage, but they still have a tremendous skaters, and I'm super pumped for some college hockey.
Yeah, can we just give flowers to Adam Nightingale? I mean, we've been so blessed. If you listen to this podcast, you might think it's like all doom and gloom here in Detroit. We've been so blessed with some great coaches and some great turnarounds over the past 5 years with Dan Campbell, with JB Bickerstaff. I would throw in AJ Hinch in there. He's done a fantastic job with his bullpen chaos. Edwin Nightingale. I mean, we are just blessed with these coaches that came in and kind of turned these franchises and organizations around. So give our flowers to Adam Nightingale, just doing absolute wonders for the Spartan hockey boys there.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And what a turnaround it is. We talk about the Pistons and their turnaround. I feel like, when we were in college not too long ago, 7-8 years ago, Michigan State hockey, it just wasn't it. They were definitely bottom tier in the Big Ten. Certainly playing second fiddle to U of M when U of M made a couple runs in the Frozen Four. And now look at it. Yeah, the hiring of Adam Nightingale. Just what they've done with that arena and their facilities. They've really updated their facilities. Their recruiting has been just insane. They're getting some awesome talent in there, and the coaching has been second to none. So yeah, I don't know how it's looking for coach of the year in college hockey, but Nightingale has to be up there. He's been absolutely tremendous. It's awesome to see.
Yeah, so good luck to the boys going up against Ohio State. Like you say, puck drop 7:30 on the Big Ten Network. Okay, let's wrap up the show. We have a grit of the week. So last week, I think we both gave it. Was that last week? I gave it to Tom Izzo. You gave it to Trey Holloman after their Tom obviously winning the Big Ten tournament or Big Ten regular season. Trey with his standing on business against the Michigan Wolverines. I will start us off with grit of the week this week. And I specifically didn't bring this up when we talked about this team because I wanted to save it for this. My grit of the week is going to be JB Bickerstaff. I did just mention, obviously, the coaching turnaround and stuff like that. But JB, one thing that he kind of did this week, if you didn't get to watch, we kicked the shit out of the Pelicans last night of recording. Over the weekend, we played the OKC Thunder. That game was surprisingly a really close game. I think we ended up losing by 3 points it was. But Oklahoma City has this reputation. If you're not really watching in the NBA, they get a lot of fouls called against them. The refs really treat them differently than any other team in the entire NBA. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is a fantastic player, but he does a lot of foul baiting, stuff like that. And JB Bickerstaff was absolutely furious. Cade Cunningham got 2 back-to-back technicals in the game, was tossed out in the middle of the third. We all know how the NBA feels about, fans going to see the stars. And so when Cade gets tossed in the middle of the third, everyone's mad. Fans are mad, coaches are mad, players are mad, everyone's mad. JB, after the game, went into his post-game conference, absolutely heated. So I just want to read off what he said, standing up for the boys. He said, "I'm disgusted by the way that game was officiated. The level of disrespect was above and beyond. The disrespect has gone on far enough, and I'm not going to allow our guys to be treated the way that they were treated tonight." It's just so refreshing to see a coach have your back this much. And I know coming to Detroit, obviously JB Bickerstaff came from the Cleveland Cavaliers last year. The reports were that he had lost the locker room a little bit in that Cavaliers team. I don't know how this man could possibly lose a locker room. These guys love JB Bickerstaff. They will play for him and fight for him every single night. And then to see him, fighting for them in the post-game press conference, he was fined $100,000 for those 3 sentences. And just saying he's not going to put up with it. You just love seeing a coach who will go to war for your guys. And rightfully so. Everyone in the league was talking about it. Everyone knows what happens to OKC. And for JB to have the balls to stand up and fight for the boys, you got to get Grit of the Week from me.
Yeah, hell yeah. JB's got balls, man. And what a refreshing turnaround from just last year when a guy who just wouldn't go to bat for his team and his team wouldn't go to bat for him, Monty Williams. So just to have a guy like JB Bickerstaff, who's just the complete opposite of Monty, who's not afraid to say exactly what's on his mind. He saw things in that game that are just straight up not right, and he's gonna call the refs out on it. He's gonna get fined out $100,000. That's not pocket change even to a guy like JB.
Right.
Yeah, I mean the guy's got balls. I love that. I love that it's Grit of the Week for you. For me, yeah, I had a guy, and it's probably in our show notes, and I'm actually going to pivot a little bit, and it's no offense to that player who shall remain nameless, even though we've already talked about him giving up 4 goals against the Capitals. But I am going to pivot and stay on the hardwood with the Pistons. I'm going to give it to Cade. And yeah, he picked up those 2 techs. Of course, he got ejected. Only scored 11 points in that game, but in his last 5, he dropped 28 points, 27 points, 38 points, then that 11-point ejection, and then 24 points. So, this offense, we know it runs through Cade. He's scoring at a very high clip. He's also facilitating at his highest clip. He's averaging a career high in assists as well. He's also rebounding the ball. So yeah, he's doing a little bit everything for this team. He is the glue of this team. Of course, there are other guys who we wouldn't be winning without them as well. Looking at Malik Beasley, just as an example, but I do think that Cade is the heart and soul of this team. And so I've probably given him Grit of the Week before. I'm going to give it to him again. He's my absolute dog. Grit of the Week this week goes to Cade.
Dude, Cade honestly, in my opinion, could get Grit of the Week every single week. My wife's gonna be pissed when I have to name our firstborn Cade Cunningham because he every single week he puts on such a show. He is so perfect for the city. I love everything he does. I love every single week he comes out and performs. It is kind of bold of you to give him Grit of the Week this week of all weeks when he owes me money from losing my parlay after having kicked the Pelicans' ass so badly. And so I will forgive you on that. Cade, come on the podcast, talk about how you had to sit in the 4th quarter because you were winning by so much and you lost me my parlay. Bring JB with you. You guys just do a dual interview, and we can, give you your both Grits of the Week. And Cade's fantastic. We go as far as Cade will take us. It'll be interesting to see when he starts getting his first playoff experience here in Detroit and see how he reacts to the immense pressure. Basketball is very, very different when it comes to playoff time. So it'll be really interesting to see how he, steps up and handles adversity and handles a whole different game. We have a few guys on the team that obviously have some playoff experience: Dennis Schroeder, Malik Beasley, Tobias Harris. But we have a number of guys who have 0 playoff experience and really 0 game of importance experience. This year there's been a game here and there where we really want to win it and stuff like that, but there's been nothing for a lot of these guys like Ron Holland, Asar Thompson, Cade, so it'll be really interesting to see how Cade rallies around these guys and picks them up and takes them as far as we can see. So shout out to Cade every single week. He's good. And we'll give a little sprinkle of a shout out to Peter Mrazek, your former, in our show notes, your former Grit of the Week. I agree with you, giving up 4 goals, 3 being in the 3rd period. Maybe get that Grit of the Week yanked away from you, but Cade willing nonetheless. So, okay. That's our show. Thank you guys for tuning into this week's episode. You can find Kyle on Twitter at Kyle_Marino. You can find me on Twitter at Dutton_Tyler. And my writing at both Piston Powered and Champaign Athletics. You can watch us now on YouTube at the Gridiron Report. Join the conversation next week by calling into the Gridiron Report voicemail for us to play and discuss on the podcast. That number is 313-306-7939. And if you like this episode, please take a moment to rate it 5 stars, review it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you're listening to. Give us a nice little review. It really helps us out, grow the audience, and make even more content for you guys. So thank you so much for joining.
Yeah, and follow us on Instagram as well at Gridiron Report. And as always, restore the roar.